Hi everybody, welcome back to World History. We're doing section 3 today, so go ahead and get your notes out. Let's get started. So, we're going to be primarily focusing on North America today. So, whereas we've been focusing the last two sections on Central and South America, we're moving on north. So, we need to talk about these expansions of colonies for the rest of the European powers. We'll start with France. So, French claims in what would become Canada grew quite quietly while rulers were domestically concerned. And in 1534, Jacques Cartier explored the eastern coast of Canada, discovering the St. Lawrence River. Traveling on the river, he claimed much of eastern Canada for France, primarily the provinces of like Newfoundland, Ontario, Quebec. Those general regions would be claimed by the French. Now, New France, as it was called, thrived from the abundance of furs being processed by the colonies. That means things like beavers. And they were able to generate a lot of revenues, or income generated from selling a good or service. The system of trapping and trading was actually the backbone of the new French economy and massively influenced a lot of their colonial decisions for the next 300 years. So, moving a little further down into what will become the good old US of A, the English colonies. The English built their first permanent colony in Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. In the early years, many people died from starvation and disease. The colony finally started to make money when it began to grow and export tobacco, a cash crop, if you will. Cash crops are crops that can be grown quickly and easily and sell for a lot of money. Now, this was in 1607. They started growing tobacco in about 1610 or so. And 10 years later, the Pilgrims, or the Puritans, will land at Plymouth Rock. They're Protestants who reject the Church of England. Goodness, there's a fly in here today. Now, one thing they did when they arrived was decided to create a document describing their own system of government, this being the Mayflower Compact, which established the governing system of the Plymouth colony. A compact is an agreement among people, and this document was an important step towards self-government. The English colonies enjoyed more self-government than the French or the Spanish, mainly because the British were like, they're never going to leave us. They're always going to do what they're supposed to. We don't have to watch them that closely. If only they knew what was coming. So, between the 1600s and 1700s, the English established additional colonies in North America. Virginia and New York specifically were commercial ventures organized for profit. Now, early settlers in all the colonies were similar in that they all struggled for survival. In the South specifically, so colonies like the Carolinas, Georgia, cash crops like tobacco and rice were grown as a result of the warm weather. When we talk about the colonies, we break up the colonies into three different groups: New England, the Middle Colonies, and the Southern Colonies. Like I said, Georgia and the Carolinas primarily fall into the Southern Colonies. The Middle Colonies are places like Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. And New England is places like New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. So, by the late 1600s, several countries were competing for colonies in North America. France made claims to Canada and the central United States. Spain claimed it would become Texas and Florida, and the English and Dutch were maintaining the East Coast. By the late 1700s, the French and English Caribbean islands surpassed all of North America in exports to Europe. This land was worked by enslaved native peoples, hence why they were so productive. Now, eventually, this rivalry will turn to war. In the 1700s, Britain and France were bitter rivals. They hated each other, and they clashed in Europe, North America, Africa, and Asia. They fought everywhere. And by 1754, war erupted here in the Western Hemisphere, the French and Indian War, which you should have learned about a little bit in 8th grade last year. This went on until 1763. This turned into a worldwide struggle known as the 7 Years' War. This would also spread to fighting in Europe, India, and Africa. Now, the war will end in 1763 with the Treaty of Paris that ensured British dominance in North America. The French were pretty much wiped out. France was forced to give up its land in Canada and east of the Mississippi to England, meaning everything west of the Mississippi that the French controlled was still under their control. France did end up regaining the Caribbean, and Louisiana territory was given to Spain. Sorry, I misspoke. They did end up giving that away too. But eventually, and we'll talk about this when we get to chapter 18 and we talk about Napoleon, France will eventually get the Louisiana territory back. So that's it for notes for today. There is no new assignment. I will see you all next time. Bye, everyone.